to our next panel. Let me introduce the moderator, Anne-Marie Green, correspondent, CBS News, correspondent, 48 Hours. She lives here in Philly as well. Just Anne-Marie Green, come on up. Also, then we have Rick Williams, 6 ABC, co-anchor, 5 p.m.
5 and 11.
5 and 11.
5
He's
and
a staple
11.
of Philadelphia. Everybody knows Rick
Oh,
Williams.
that's right.
Thank you. Legend. And we have Don Bell as well. Sports director for CBS 3. He's also a legend. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. It's your show.
Thank you for having us.
Make sure this is on. This is on, right?
Yep.
Yes, so thanks for being here, everyone. My name is Anne-Marie Green. I'm a correspondent for CBS News. You probably saw me over the years streaming or the early morning news at 4 a.m. if you go to bed late or get up super early. Now I work for a show called 48 Hours, very different, true crime, murder, all that kind of stuff. But I live in Philadelphia. I never left Philadelphia. I commuted on that damn Amtrak for years. And so then when I was asked to do this, I was sort of over the moon for a couple of reasons, but because I get to sit down with some of two of my favorite people here, right? Rick Williams, I've been watching forever on TV, and I said to him, but what I realized is I didn't know a lot about his background, because to me, he's just always been on the anchor desk, you know? Like he was born there. And of course, Don Bell, who I worked with at CBS 3 when I was here at CBS, so it's great to sit down with a colleague. When I was thinking about what it means to be an anchor and what the anchor desk is, you know, it's not just a piece of furniture. It is a place where people come to in a moment of chaos. They're looking for calm. Mm-hmm. Whoever's behind that anchor desk has to bring that to them, has to bring them context. It is the primary way that the viewers interface with this media company, whatever it is. And so there's a lot of weight on the anchor, and it's not just about presenting the news accurately. You're connecting. And so, let's get into this, right, guys? And what I do want to actually talk about is your origin story.
Okay.
Rick, I'm going to ask you first, because you've been here forever. You've been here for 40 years?
Almost. I started in 1988.
1988.
I was 10. No, just kidding.
So tell me why little Rick decided to become a journalist.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for coming. You know, we weren't sure who our audience would be, whether it be students or people already in the business. Looks like it's a nice mix. Nice to see everybody here on a Saturday afternoon, listening to us, and hopefully we'll be able to listen to you a little bit as well. But yeah, I came to Philadelphia in 1988. Before that, I worked in Raleigh, Durham, from 1985 to 1988. Before that, I went to Howard University. And majored in broadcast journalism. But I also started out in radio, WHUR.
Oh,
I had my own little radio show late at night, you know, jazz, playing jazz and stuff. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do as far as broadcasting was concerned. I knew I loved being on the radio, and Howard had this burgeoning little TV station, WHMM, but I also loved to write. So I majored in journalism at Howard, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to work like for the Washington Post, or maybe, you know, stick in radio or TV. But your career kind of finds you. You don't find your career finds you. And I remember serving an internship at WRC-TV in DC, and this guy named Jim Vance, who I think was from Philly, well, grew up in Philly, but he was the anchor there. He kind of took me under his wing, he mentored me a little bit, and he said, you know, if you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to pay your dues, you could do what I do. You could thrive in this business. And from there, you know, he gave me the fortification, he gave me the confidence to know that a black man could succeed in a pretty much white-dominated industry in Washington, D.C., although I'm from New York, I didn't really want to live in D.C., but but I was fortunate enough to have mentors and have people who said, you could do this if you're willing to do the work. So my first job was in this little station in Huntington, West Virginia, where I worked for about 10 months. I said I wouldn't be here longer than a year. And then from there, after I put together a resume tape that I thought was worth sending out, sent it everywhere. Somebody in Raleigh-Durham saw it, WRAL-TV. Next thing I know, I'm working for Raleigh-Durham. I signed a 3-year contract, still trying to get back to New York, that's my home. And then in 1988, I get this call from a news director at WPVI-TV in Philadelphia. I had never even thought about moving to Philadelphia, living in Philadelphia. All I knew about Philadelphia back then was the big move fire, with the compound, dropping the bomb, all that stuff. But they said, well, at least come and look at the city, see what you think. We know you want to go to New York, we know New York is your home, but come and look at Philly, come check us out, do your research, find out how successful WPVI-TV is. Came in, I visited the station, met this, the local Walter Cronkite guy named Jim Gardner, who seemed kind of, a nice guy, and but he was like, I'm the man here, so he made that clear from day one. And I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to take your job yet, but anyway. So I fell in love with Philly, and initially, it's funny, you make this blueprint for your life, and then it makes a right or left turn. I said, I'll sign one contract in Philadelphia and still try to go to New York. Well, that was in 1988, it's 2025, and I'm still here. And, the station has treated me well, the company, we're owned by Disney, they've treated me well. I've had, people in my corner, but I've also made sacrifices. I've anchored every single shift at the station, from early mornings to now 11 p.m. But I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I love where I work, I love where I live, I love this city, I love this station, and I've been blessed, and I've been very lucky, but I've also paid my dues. So here I am, if someone had told me that I'd be anchoring, the solo anchor at 11 o'clock in Philadelphia, once Jim Gardner decided to step down, I was, yeah, right, sure. But things have a way of working out, and
Rick, why did you want to be a journalist?
I wanted to be because I was always inquisitive as a kid, and I grew up watching people on TV like Brian Gumbel on a Today Show, who I thought was just an excellent broadcaster, was an excellent interviewer. He could handle sports and news with aplomb, and he did the Today Show. So I wanted to have a career that made a difference, and he actually made a difference. And I think, not just in broadcasting, but if you see somebody that you want to model yourselves after, whether it's professionally or personally, and you follow them, and hopefully you are inspired by them. And he was one of the people that inspired me. There was a guy named Max Robinson. Anybody remember Max Robinson, the anchor?
ABC.
Yeah, he inspired me too. So there was all these people who showed me, and again, Jim Vance, when I interned for him, that if they could do it, then I could do it if I was willing to do the work. And here I am.
Yeah,
So
it's working out.
It's so
Working
far
out for
so
you, I
good.
think.
But it's been a blessing.
Don, why did you want to become a journalist?
Just to clarify, so you're not going to New York, guys?
If I do, it'll be on retirement.
I was going to say it louder for the people in the back. I got here because as a kid, I was a straight up thief. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Basically, I would beat my dad to the newspaper every morning, and I would steal the newspaper before he could get to it. And before he would notice, I would already be at school, and I would be reading the paper on the bus to school, and I read it at lunchtime and until it was done. That process started with me stealing the sports page out of the paper first. Then I would get to everything else, and I grew up in North Jersey, so I grew about 25 minutes out of New York, and it was the Newark Star Ledger at the time. Then he would get the USA Today. back when the New USA Today was actually a thing, and it wasn't this big. And that's how it started for me. It was just a love for newspapers and reading it. And you do something long enough, all of a sudden you start to realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm like really interested in this. I'm really enjoying this. And then along the way, as I got into high school and beyond, or into college, it just kind of, it stuck with me. It's like, maybe this is something you should pursue. So I went to Boston University, and while I was there, I decided to major in broadcast journalism. But I wasn't completely sold out, because everybody told me how difficult journalism in general would be. And I heard all the nightmare stories about starting your career in, like, say, Paducah, Kentucky, and making like no money whatsoever. And so I hedged my bets a little bit, and I also got another degree in political science. And so when I graduated, I worked at a law firm for a year in Manhattan, and took the LSAT and decided I was going to go to Fordham Law School. But while I was working at that law firm, I realized that I was still so obsessed with journalism and sports, and it was just an itch that I had to scratch. So instead of pursuing it right away, I decided to get more serious in terms of education. Went to Northwestern, Medill, shout out. I went to Medill for grad school, and then decided to start my broadcast career. And my first job was in Sarasota, Florida. Like Rick, it was a short stint. I was there for 14 months. After that, I went to St. Louis. I was there for a year and a half, left there, came to Philly. So each step of the way, I signed contracts that were long. They were like 3 years, but in the contract, my first one, I said, hey, can you give me an out clause for a top 25 market? They're like, sure, kid. No chance you'll be able to get that. You just started, you kind of stink, which was true. Got better quickly and was able to get out. Same with my contract in St. Louis. And then I found myself at KYW here in Philly. So that was a great decision. I'd never spent any real time in Philadelphia, and
Why sports? Did you play sports? Or was
I played sports in high school and stuff, but I had some scholarship opportunities, but I wasn't exactly going to play for the U. You know what I mean? So it was like I took some visitations. Like I went to like Lehigh, and while I was there shadowing some of the football players, I'm like, damn. These guys have no time to study. So unless I'm going pro, I probably really want to dive into the books a little bit. So that's when I decided that the dream of playing football or anything else is probably not one that was going to work out for me. So really leaning into journalism at that point.
What do people not understand about sports coverage? There's a lot of assumptions about what your job is.
Yeah, it's not just obviously reading and reacting. When I say reading, I mean like watching a game and then just going out and talking about it. I mean your same fundamentals that Anne-Marie you use and Rick you use to cover news is the same stuff that we use in sports, right? You do really have to be a reporter first. I think the one thing that differentiates sports coverage is that there's a whole lot of leeway for editorializing along the way, right? Especially in a city like Philadelphia. If the Eagles stink, I can't go out there and just say, well, they lost 40-3. Like, this town would not accept that. I have to say that they were hot trash because you expect that from me, and that's okay. Whereas if you're covering an election and, whether you lean blue or red, you can't call it like that. So that is one of the big things that's really important while covering sports. But by and large, the fundamentals are the exact same in terms of, reading,